My name is Katie Hendrickson, and Doreen Hendrickson is my mother. When I was at the sentencing hearing, obviously I was a bit distraught, and I don't quite remember everything as well as I wish I maybe did. I don't know if I wish it. But I do distinctly remember at more than one point, the government and the judge both explicitly stating that what was happening to my mother and to my family as a whole was an attempt to discourage others from opposing the government. And for the longest time, most of my life, I was absolutely certain that I wanted to have children. I'd never even questioned it. But how can I in good conscience bring more life into a world that is constantly sliding towards an Orwellian dystopia? I can't. This government is out of control, and our country is losing its foundation by the day. And what happened in that courtroom is just an underscore of that reality, and we cannot allow it to go any further. The founders laid out the Bill of Rights and listed the specific rights that they did because those are the most basic in humanity. And freedom of speech is first, because without that, we cannot preserve our other freedoms. We have to save our country right now before it's too late. So please stand up.
My name is Bill Bevan. I'm a Vietnam veteran. Live in Auburn Hills, Michigan. I was at a court proceeding, and I was appalled at what took place in this country. I seen a judge come in a courtroom with a stack of papers, listened to what took place in the courtroom, then read directly off those papers that were pre-printed before the court took place, and thought it was a kangaroo court. There's no way that a judge could impart actual, honest judgment when things were prepared ahead of time and read as a script, so it mattered not what took place in the court. So people should know that I've killed human beings for a right to be free, and the court system here is corrupt, and it did not serve its purpose.
Did you feel personally threatened, and would you describe your experience in that regard to what you experienced in the courtroom?
I did feel threatened. I felt that my Constitution was threatened.
Constitution was threatened. How about you personally?
Me personally, because my rights are like anybody else's rights. Everybody deserves to have their rights protected and to have their side of the story heard and honestly judged, not be prejudged before you even had a chance to provide some testimony.
You had said something about that one of the parties in the courtroom addressed the supporters of the defendant. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
Could you describe that, please?
Yes. We identified ourselves as supporting the defendant, and later the court made issue with those who supported the defendant. So I felt threatened because I was there to support somebody for their
position.
The position.
David Lonier. I'm a resident of Auburn Hills, Michigan. I attended all of 3 of Doreen's hearings, 2 trial court hearings, and her sentencing hearing. The judge and government prosecutors worked hand in hand to persuade and intimidate the juries that Doreen broke a law when in fact no law was broken. The irony was that she refused to obey a judge's order that she break the law. She was found guilty of refusing to break the law. The court miscalculated in the first trial by allowing Doreen to give her opening and closing statements and articulate her defense to the jury, resulting in a hung jury. In the second trial, the court wasn't taking any chances and sustained most of the government's objections that prevented Doreen from completing her opening and closing statements or giving unobstructed defense arguments to the jury. The hearings were rigged. The outcome was predetermined. Doreen was vilified without evidence. The juries were intimidated and cajoled into siding with the government. The judge showed no impartiality. In my opinion, the rule of law and common sense were not applied in Doreen's court hearings.
Okay, let me ask you, Dave. Did you write that?
I did.
Okay, there we go. Yeah.
My name is Anna Janek. Imagine that you live in a society full of obedient people, following orders without any questions, just doing what they are told. Imagine that someone is telling you to sign a piece of paper that you know it is wrong. Would you sign it? Against your will, against your conscious knowledge. Doreen stood up. Hey, I'm not signing this paper. It's wrong. So the government took her to court. I watched the hearings and sentencing. Complete circus. The black-robed person told the puppet jurors that Doreen is guilty, to convict her, and they did, as they were told. Nobody listened what Doreen said. The really sad part is, this can happen to any of us. Ask yourself a question. Would you stand up and say no? This is wrong. Or would you sign your name as a good order follower? And yes, you live in a society where people do what they are told. Does not matter, is it right or wrong?
Okay, Anna, did you write that of your own accord?
Yes, I did.
Did anybody help you?
Nope,
Thank you.
I don't need
I'm
help.
Brian Wright. I live in Novi, Michigan. I'm an author and publisher. I published and authored the Motor City Witchcraft Trials, which is a story of Doreen's second trial, which I attended. And I'm just going to give you my impressions from that trial. It felt right from the get-go, and I was a witness at the first trial, so I only saw like the first day, really, in the second, and then the fifth day. But it was easy to tell immediately that it was a sham trial. I felt like it was like To Kill a Mockingbird. It was like the verdict was in, and it was the prosecution and the judge working as a team, Plus they were badgering Doreen all the time. They interrupted Doreen's key statements, including her summation of all things. And I used to watch Perry Mason, and the judges never did that. I was shocked, and I was in a court when this statement was made by the judge or the woman in the black robe, and she stated that the unlawfulness of the order that Doreen was charged of violating was not something we could consider or that the jury could consider. That just is just completely wrong. I mean, how can you not consider the nature and whether a crime was committed, So anyway, it was corrupt. I felt the jury was manipulated. I think there was co-presence without counsel toward the end. It just felt like the judge was falling asleep here and there. I felt that she, it almost seemed like she was following orders, like going through the motion. And I just sort of wonder if Homeland Security got to her and said, well, we need to squash these people. So anyway, no one, and further, nobody on the prosecution or judicial team knew anything about CtC. They had no knowledge whatsoever of the nature of the income tax. So anyway, my impressions then from the sentencing on April 9 was that they clearly wanted to make an example of Doreen, and that was stated up front. The sentencing was bureaucratic, Byzantine. It was hard to figure out what they were doing. It was obvious the prosecution wanted to maximize. They wanted to burn her at the stake. Why does then the thing came up as why does any contempt charge receive an 18-month sentence? That's just incomprehensible. It was cruel and unusual punishment under the circumstances, and I came away thinking these are completely out of control and corrupt public officials.
Well, thank you very much, Brian.
And I wrote this.
Start anytime.
Okay, my name is Glenna Long, and I live in Auburn Hills. I'm going to make this very, very brief, but to me it's a very important talk. I got married in 1951, 3 weeks after I'd graduated from Otterbein University, and 2 weeks later after I got married I found out I was pregnant. So I spent the early part of my life being a homemaker and a mother. Well, as time went on, the children were grown up. I got a job then working at the DIA in youth theater, and then when I retired I signed up immediately for a master course in gardening. Well, this is what I did, but a lot of my friends, for some reason or another, they were going to court every once in a while, so we decided to go as court watchers, and this wasn't a profession, it was just something that you wanted to do to support them. So we would go, and I watched things change in the last 10 years in the court. Then Doreen and Pete's trial, and I will include both of them, and so we went. I'm surprised after it was over that they didn't ask for tickets, because it was a script and a play. When Doreen gave her wonderful ending and explained everything very succinctly, I won't say judge or magistrate, the lady up there on the bench with a black robe looked down and read what she had brought in the very beginning, a prepared verdict. I thought it was the worst thing I have ever seen in my life, and I have never been to court where it was so obvious. And all I have to say at the end is, for all the people out there that say, well, why doesn't somebody do something? The person that's saying it is a person.